We can map the firing of individual neurons, yet dream analysis often relies on an older assumption that they are static puzzles containing hidden messages. This approach identifies the origin of the decoding model in early psychoanalysis, the search for a latent, repressed meaning behind symbolic imagery. But analyzing dreams as texts to be translated becomes difficult to justify when compared to modern thermodynamic models of the brain, like the free energy principle. The brain does not appear to hide messages from itself. To address this, we can apply the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM. The BKM thesis is that a dream is not a text to be read. It is a directional reconfiguration process, a mechanical sequence designed to dissipate cognitive strain built up during waking hours. To understand human mentation, we must shift our focus from what a particular dream means to how it moves and redistributes internal psychological imbalance. That process begins with waking strain. This is a saturated memory unit or a cognitive conflict that cannot be resolved while we are awake. Because the brain cannot process this dense conceptual strain directly, it must systematically unpack the data over time. This illustrates the core BKM sequence. Mental unpacking follows a linear pathway. Concept maps to symbol, generating a narrative and leading to an identity shift. Moving along this path, data volume expands. A compressed memory unit scales outward into a multidimensional simulation. If this linear pathway is consistent, it suggests that knowing the initial input variables allows for the prospective modeling of the resulting dream state. Under this model, dreams are the predictable exhaust of waking cognitive conflict, structurally bound by this four-step transformation ladder. This strain transformation model serves as the first operational tool for classifying mental content. Level 1 is the concept, a dense phrase holding maximum tension. Level 2 is the symbol, mapping concepts onto visual carriers. Level 3 injects symbols into time-sequenced narrative scenes. Level 4 is the identity shift, altering the subject's role. By applying a specific set of diagnostic questions, like, is there a dominant image, or does the eye change, we can categorize dream data into these four distinct levels. The immersive reality of a dream is the step-by-step unspooling of a dense waking thought into a temporal theater. Beyond the structural layers, we must examine the temporal flow of strain within the simulation itself. During the initiation and rising phases, the dream narrative begins to expose the underlying cognitive imbalance. This kinematic graph plots strain exposure over narrative time. The sharp peak is the center of image, maximum vulnerability. Following that peak, the trajectory falls to a new balance axis, the center of meaning, representing the reconfigured identity. In the BKM, a dream's message is not a hidden noun. It is a directional vector, the sum of the initial peak vulnerability, the transformation path, and the final resolution. The narrative exists to push the mind through the peak exposure of the center of image to reach the newly stabilized identity at the center of meaning. With the structure and temporal arc defined, we can deploy the prediction model to forecast how a specific concept might emerge as a narrative. The model proposes that a wakened concept, combined with its emotional charge and memory context, provides the parameters that dictate the dream's form. This routing matrix translates abstract inputs into spatial environments. Conceptual strains on the left route to spatial outputs on the right. For example, the strain of ownership is routed through the environment of a house or yard to be processed. Once that space is generated, the physical action within the dream, such as organizing and leaving, is limited by the chosen spatial parameters. The mind's choice of dream space functions not as creative randomness, but as an algorithmic response to waking data. We can test this by looking at a longitudinal clinical sequence involving a subject experiencing conceptual exhaustion regarding their own theoretical work. The specific waking concept input was the phrase, burned term. Using the prediction tool, the semantic exhaustion of a term maps to the visual symbol of an abandoned structure. Following the spatial progression, the brain simulates an organized house situated in a frozen field to process the strain of intellectual ownership. The simulation reaches its center of image through sudden public nudity. This manifests the peak strain, the vulnerability of identity stripped of its intellectual structure. To resolve the imbalance, the system detaches the self from the structure. The subject's role shifts from owner to passenger. The imagery in the dream aligns with the model's predicted path for discharging an exhausted conceptual unit through spatial simulation. The shift in identity is mirrored in the subject's first conscious thought upon waking. They recalled a specific poetic fragment. Everybody built a building. Afterward, he left that to somebody else. Mapping the variables onto this text, the building represents the constructed waking identity, while leaving signifies the dissolution of the original strain. This single sentence reflects the successful outcome of the identity shift phase, the conscious integration of the transformation that occurred during sleep. Through this linguistic output, we see the subject relocated their sense of self beyond their fixed waking constructs. This operational framework aligns the BKM with the free energy principle. From a thermodynamic perspective, the brain uses dreams to minimize systemic surprise and restore internal continuity. This evidence suggests that the historical practice of translating dreams like a dictionary should be replaced by more dynamic models. By applying the transformation ladder, the tracking table, and the prediction model, we begin to map the actual mechanics of the mind. Mentation can be viewed as a predictable kinematic flow, offering a rigorous mathematical lens into the transformation of the self.